What's up, friends? You're watching B-Boy 45. My name is Chris. Hanging down here in the Seacrest studios, we have a special Tuesday edition of Maya's latest news to keep, especially me, in the groove. I need a lot of helping keeping the groove here. Maya, are you going to help me keep in the groove today?
Yes.
Yes, and it's a special edition, of course, to help us keep in the groove. Maya, why is today special?
Because Andy Schwartz is calling.
We got Andy Schwartz on the line with Maya. How great is that? Andy, thanks for being with us. Maya, girl, take it away.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for calling in. I am so excited to be talking to you, and I'm so grateful that Randy and Jason connected us.
They are my dear friends, the Sklar brothers. And as soon as they texted me and said, you got to talk to Maya, I was all in. I couldn't be more excited to be here with you.
So my first question for you is, who or what inspired you to get into the entertainment industry?
Great question. I'm from a little bit of I have a different story than a lot of people, which is that my family were writers. We're in show business. My grandfather was a fairly successful writer. He created the shows The Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island. And so that was before my time, before I was born. My dad, he started out when he was like in his 20s and was a producer on The Brady Bunch, and then worked in the business too. And he wrote on shows like What's Happening and Love Boat, and shows in that era, which was when I was like a really little kid. And so I kind of grew up on sets and watching him write. And it's a very difficult job, but when you see the magic that comes out of, filming a TV show, and you see everybody working together and being creative and funny and interesting, and it's just something that's infectious. And it's just something I always kind of wanted to do. But actually, let me take that back. Actually, I didn't want to do it until I was like a teenager. But at that point, it kind of clicked. Before that, I kind of just wanted to be a baseball player. Of course, that's like like every little kid. I was like, I want to be on the Dodgers. But then around when I was a teenager, that really inspired me.
Oh, cool. So you began your career working on shows like How I Met Your Mother and Frasier, which are two of my favorite shows. And you also wrote for Scrubs for a few seasons, which again, I love that show. How did being a part of these incredible shows influence your career?
Oh, hugely. The first couple shows you mentioned, I was just an assistant. It was really important for me to kind of work my way up, even though my family was in the business. I didn't want to just use that and just try and get ahead. That's called nepotism, and it only gets you so far. You really have to earn it. And that probably goes true for most businesses, but especially in ours. So I was an assistant. I was the guy getting coffee and copying scripts and driving them all over town. I worked on a Nickelodeon show called All That, and another one called Drake and Josh. And I was literally like the guy that was just doing anything that anyone needed, cleaning up, dressing rooms. So not too glamorous, but it really, got me in the door. I got to meet different people, and that was exciting. Working, I got to work on the very last season of Frasier, which was almost like a celebration. It had been on that was the 11th season. And what was amazing about that job was a lot of the crew, probably like half of that crew, also worked the entire run of a show called Cheers, which also went for 11 seasons. And so that crew had been working together for 22 years. And when I worked on that show, I was 21 years old. So they had known each other longer than I would have been alive, which was really amazing. And so it was almost like bittersweet. Like it was a celebration of the show ending, but it was also like a little bit of sadness from them of having to, they don't get to work together anymore. But I got to work on that, which was a very special experience, learned a ton. That was what we call a multi-camera sitcom. So it was in front of an audience. So it was almost like putting on a play every week. You got to see that. It was really, really inspiring. And the writers, I mean, the writers are on Frasier are like considered the best of all time. And then I went right from that and I got to work on the very first season of How I Met Your Mother, also as an assistant. And so I didn't have a huge part in that show. I used to write like Barney's blog at the first season, ran their softball team because I like to play softball. But I didn't have too much involvement. But then when I was working on How I Met Your Mother, actually right after that, I was very lucky to get hired as an actual writer on Scrubs, the 6th season of Scrubs. And Bill Lawrence is still my mentor. I look up to him and his career, and not only like, his success and how he is as a writer, but he treats people very well. He's very fair. And so, yeah, he's a mentor of mine. I still talk to him all the time, and inspires me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. When the pandemic first started and lockdown happened, I was watching How I Met Your Mother all the time. And then for the first time, I watched all of Frasier. And so those were 2 shows that were keeping me company during lockdown.
Let me tell you, like, the people in charge of those shows are just total professionals, incredible at their job. That first year of How I Met Your Mother, I don't know if you know this. So it was created by these 2 guys, Carter and Craig, who are just amazing and brilliant. But on that writing staff were also Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who have gone on to, they did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and 21 Jump Street. And he just has the after party on Apple. I mean, these guys are just the best of the best and wonderful people. And I consider it to be an honor to work on those shows. I didn't have any real part in the creativity of it, but just to be around that was, as I said, inspiring and humbling because they were so good.
Yeah, that's so cool. What was the inspiration for your show, Mighty Med?
So that's a very good question. So I'll be honest about this. So I actually created a different pilot for Disney Channel. And it was called Kara Normal. And it was about this young girl named Kara who is mistakenly enrolled into a boarding school for kids with powers. And so she sort of had to fake it to make it there. It's like if you or I were accidentally, enrolled into like X-Men Academy, and we were like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be here," and then she has to kind of get by with it. So created that. I wrote a script that paired me up with a writer named Jim Bernstein. We wrote what I thought was a really funny script. It ended up not going at Disney, which is fine. That happens all the time. And because of that script, they called and they said, we have this little idea about a superhero hospital. And that's kind of all they had. And they were like, can you do anything with that? So Jim and I worked together and we kind of fleshed out that idea. And the key for us was infusing kids into the world because it was a kid's show. It had to be. So, the trick about creating kids TV is that, you can't really have a show where even like Doogie Howser is an example of a show you could do, which is like one kid, but in an adult world, but that doesn't really work for Disney Channel, right? You need like a bunch of kids. And so we were like, how can kids be working at a superhero hospital? How does this make sense? So the key to us was creating, okay, there's 2 boys who are big, comic book fans, have that expertise. And because of that, they get to work there. But the real key to the show was Skylar Storm and going, oh, what if a young superhero had lost her powers and was kind of, that's like a series long arc. How do we get them back? And that kind of was an inspiration and really fueled everything going forward. Then we introduced Alan, who was like this, annoying nephew of the chief of staff So we kind of built it that way. But at the heart of the show always was, and we say this in the pilot, saving people who save people. We love that. We love the idea that because of who these boys are in their soul, because they love comic books, because they love superheroes, and not only do they love it, they know a ton about it, they were able to be their heroes. And so that was really the key that drove the entire series for us.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that show was it was just one of my favorite shows, and it made such an impact in my life, or on my life. And it also brought Randy and Jason into my life. So I'm forever grateful for that show.
I'll tell you a little secret about that. So when we originally wrote the parts of Wallace and Clyde, it was just Clyde. That we just had one comic book guy, kind of based on the Simpsons comic book guy, and it was just kind of we wrote it for one guy, and he ran a comic book shop, and we didn't really think much of it. We just wanted that character. And the brilliant casting directors at Disney brought in Randy and Jason, two guys. And I remembered them because I'm a big sports fan. I remember them from their ESPN show Cheap Seats. And I was always a huge fan of theirs. And they came in and they just split up the dialogue. They did it on their own and just crushed it. They did it was the funniest audition I've ever been a part of in any level. And I remember turning to the executives and the other producers and just being like, we have to hire them. Like this is an easy call. And they agreed. And we ended up splitting up the part, and we made up this whole backstory just because this wasn't even in the script before. We made up this whole backstory that they were once this very powerful villain, and then they split them up into kind of two, bumbling ones. And we created this whole lore about them. And it's only because Randy and Jason are so brilliant. And then of course, when they came on the show, we hit it off as people. And so we're all very close. Randy and Jason and I developed projects. Still, I literally just got off the phone with Randy an hour ago discussing another pilot that we're trying to sell right now.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So what is your writing process like? Do you have like a ritual you do to get in the right frame of mind, or do ideas just come to you?
It's a great question, because every writer has a little bit of a different process. I always hear stories of people and their process is so different than mine that I'm like, how do you even do that? That seems crazy to me. Like, I wouldn't even know what to do. Some people, I write an hour a day and I never stop. And I'm like, all right. So everyone has a different process. And I think there's no right or wrong answer. For me, it varies, mainly because of a couple of reasons. Number one is I have young kids. And so my days, especially during the pandemic, when they were homeschooled, were crazy. It was like, I couldn't even get a few minutes to myself. So I had to kind of piecemeal when I was writing. Some days I'd be able to write in the morning, other days in the afternoon, some not at all. And so I would just do the best I can. But mainly the process differs because each project is a little bit different. Some projects I write maybe require a little more research. So if I just have a seed of an idea, I might have to just do a lot of research online, like looking up into if it's a historical thing, looking into that. If it's about a subject matter that I just don't know much about, I might dig into that a little bit more. Even for Mighty Med, to be honest, I wasn't a huge comic book fan. So I had to watch all the Marvel movies many times, read a ton of comic books, which sounds not that hard. It's not that hard of work. It's fun. But for me, that's my job. In other projects, I will, very thoroughly outline before I get started. Other ones, I just start writing a script just to kind of want to get into the dialogue of the characters. I do try now that the kid, I have two sons, one's 9 and one's 6. And now that they're back at school, I try at least in the morning to be productive in some way. So some days that means outlining, other days it means writing scripts, other days it just means networking, making calls, just thinking of ideas. So no real true process like I know some people have, but mine's a little more, it's not as focused, I would say, but I do try and work really hard for as long as I can.
Oh, cool. Do you have a favorite superhero movie?
Ooh, I'll name a couple. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So I would say I think comedically, something like Thor Ragnarok is amazing. Taika Waititi directed it. I think it takes something that's very serious. The action is amazing, but it has a slight spin on it that I really enjoy the comedy of it. I think Captain America Winter Soldier is the action of that. I think that's the Russo's first movie they directed. The action is incredible. It's like, it's not as much CGI as some of the movies. So it's like a lot of like, you can tell they like really shot it. It's amazing. But I honestly you know what I did over the pandemic is my son, who's 9, we watched every Marvel movie like in chronological order.
Oh, wow.
Which there's a lot now. You know, it didn't used to be that tough. Now there's like 20. So you're like, oh, it takes forever. And I have to say, like, all of them are really good. They all have strengths. I mean, obviously the Avengers movies are incredible. You know, we just went and saw this new Spider-Man. It's amazing. We love I don't want to, for anyone who hasn't seen it, guys, I don't want to ruin anything, but it's very good. So I would say that, you know, the DC like Batman movies are really dark. So I don't want to show my son. I've seen them, but I don't want to show my son yet. I think he'll have some nightmares. So I don't show him those. But superhero movies now, the graphics are so incredible. Like I just don't even, it's funny, as a writer, I know I did Mighty Med, but that was on a much smaller scale, right? Like, you know, you could tell the action, we didn't have the budget. We just couldn't do it. These movies now and TV shows and the ones on Disney Plus, you know, the Falcon Winners, all that. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to write that. It's incredible. They write things I'd be like, wait, someone just jumped out of a plane and turned into a hawk and they like, you know, fought monsters. I'm like, whoa, that's incredible. So I'm always in awe of those movies. They're a lot of them are fantastic.
Yeah, I remember the first like superhero movies I actually really liked were Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies. And my sister has always been a huge superhero fan. She's seen all the Marvel movies. And I personally, I can't follow comic books. There's something about like the format that I just can't follow them. Yeah. Like the first, and I love like the new Spider-Man movies, but the one that I don't love like the dark superhero movies, but the ones with comedy. And my favorite personally is Shazam.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I've seen that one. I don't even know how many times.
That was really good. Yeah, that recent one was great. You know, in Mighty Med, you know, because you're talking about the comedy, that's the other inspiration we had. You know, there had been obviously comedic superhero movies and TV shows before, but I remember one of the first jokes we thought of, and I think it's in the pilot, in the very first episode, is a superhero sticking out his tongue, you know, say ah, and he takes out his tongue, fire comes out, and the doctor goes, perfectly normal, which to us, like that was to us where the comedy was perfect, where just whatever is weird to a normal person is normal to a superhero, you know, or, you know, in the first episode, we have like a doctor with a stethoscope holding it up to the air because the guy's invisible.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's my voice and I'm the one who goes, woo, like that. Like, just because we thought like those kind of things are so fun and silly, and to play around with they're called like tropes, like these superhero tropes. It made us laugh every time in the writer's room. We were all adults and we were laughing. We thought it was so funny.
Oh, cool. So on Twitter, I saw one of your tweets about something that you wrote for Betty White years ago. And I was wondering, what was it like to work with her?
She was amazing. So a friend of ours, she worked for like a marketing company, and they were marketing this. This was a long time ago. This was kind of before, I'll tell you how long ago it was. It was before like wireless earbuds, like AirPods, because the whole conceit, I'm wearing this, which is appropriate, was a hoodie, like one of these kind of sweatshirts, where these things were, you could put them in your ears, and so they were attached to your iPod, I guess, back at that time. And then you just had those as earbuds. It's called Hoodie Buddy. That was the project. That was the product. And so they got Betty White to do a commercial. So I got to write up this. It was more than a commercial. It was like a 4-minute, like kind of a YouTube thing. And so I was there all day with her and working with her and giving her little notes and stuff. And I mean, she's iconic. She's the best. And at that time, I thought she was old, and that was like 9 years ago. So, she was amazing and just a total pro and totally game for whatever we did. Like, she was never like, no, I don't want to do that. She was always up for it. Absolute honor to work with her. I mean, that's like, there are very few opportunities to work with people who are your idols or historic or icons. And she's for sure one of them.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So what other projects do you have in the works that you can tell us about? Oh,
I know. I have to be careful, but I have a lot. I'm always, that's the other thing about being a writer. You talk to a lot of writers and actors and directors, which is amazing. Most people obviously are not in show business. And so you kind of have your normal job and you have to do what you have to do, which is, by the way, I'm very jealous of those people many days because they have a normal job. But I have friends who are lawyers and doctors and accountants and my job is a little different in that I have to create things, and then it's a very kind of complicated process to try and sell them and ultimately, hopefully getting on the air like Mighty Med. And so because of that, because I don't like to just sit and wait, I'm always just trying to create as much material as I can and then position it as best I can to sell. So I have a few scripts that are already written. I actually wrote my first movie ever about a year and a half ago. I wrote it with a friend of mine on Zoom, which was not easy, but that was the pandemic, so we couldn't see each other. So that's like an action comedy that we're trying to sell now. I will say that I wrote a Brady Bunch reboot that I sold to Paramount Plus about a year ago. So we're seeing what happens with that. And then, Randy and Jason and I are going out with a new half-hour comedy. So we're just starting to take that out and a few other projects too, which is really exciting. My brother, he works in unscripted television. So he and I created a couple unscripted shows that we're trying to kind of send out now too. So that's fun.
Oh, cool. Yeah. The last time we saw Randy and Jason, they were talking with our mom about the Brady Bunch and how they grew up watching that and how it was just such an iconic show. So I was wondering what your inspiration to reboot it was.
Well, as I said, so my grandfather created the original show, and then my dad created and produced a lot of the other kind of reboots, and there's like TV movies called like A Very Brady Christmas. And then the actual Brady Bunch movie, A Very Brady movie. I will say this. So in today's like TV world and, a lot of streamers and there's a lot of different places to watch TV. There's also been a lot of reboots, right? There's been so many different kinds, everything from Fuller House and Punky Brewster and Saved by the Bell and Hawaii Five-0 and everything, right?
Yeah.
And people are always interested in doing a Brady Bunch reboot. And I'll be honest, like my inclination coming out in the business was to not get involved in that. I kind of wanted to pave my own path. But as my dad was hearing different ideas, I kind of thought of one, and it was a very out of the box idea. It was not a normal reboot. It was they called it a big swing. It was like It was like, you're taking a big swing and you either hit a home run or you strike out. And I thought, you know what, this might be worth trying. So we went to the studio and we were lucky enough to sell it. I'll tell you, not many people know this, but I'll just tell you what it was about because I think it's cool. It was basically, instead of just doing a normal reboot, like a Fuller House, which was good, but that has kind of already been done before. This one was about a modern day family, blended family with 6 kids, kind of like the Brady Bunch. The dad is like a big fan of the original show. The kids don't really know it because they're young. Maybe they've seen it a few times. That's it. And his goal is for his family, his blended family, to be like the Brady Bunch, like the family that he grew up watching, the family that he idolized. And he's like, come on, everyone get along. But as we all know, siblings disagree, especially siblings that are kind of connected per marriage. Basically, my wife comes from a blended family like that. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard growing up. Different people, stepbrothers, stepsisters, everyone's in each other's way all the time. So his family is not like the Brady Bunch, and so he puts an offer, a bid on an original Brady Bunch prop, the vase, the famous vase that broke in an episode. And he spends a lot of money and he gets it. And he's like, this can be like a symbol of our family. We can be like the Brady Bunch. And of course it breaks, so one of the kids breaks it. The dad is annoyed. He's like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe we'll never be like the Brady Bunch. And they go to sleep. And when they wake up in the morning, they are in the Brady house in 1969. And so the show is about a modern day family that's trapped in the Brady Bunch.
Oh, wow. That sounds really, really interesting and really good.
Yeah. So, it turned out pretty good and we're just trying to figure out how to sell it, but it's something I'm proud of. I think it's just a unique way to take on a reboot. There's a lot of other twists in there. I'm not giving away just in case, but that's the kind of the way in. That's the basic idea of the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah. So has there been a project you've worked on that's had a big impact on you personally and professionally?
Oh, wow. I want to start by just saying every project, everything I've ever worked on, even if I was like a little assistant getting coffee all the way up to running my own show, has impacted me creatively, like as professionally and personally, whether it's something like Mighty Med, where I've picked up friends actually every show I picked up friends along the way. So that absolutely has an impact. That's probably the most important thing that can come out of working, is just to meet friends, and people who are going through what I'm going through, and people with similar sensibilities. Randy and Jason are perfect examples. Like, we just get each other. So obviously we want to have the best product possible. We want someone like you to love Mighty Med, and I'm sure they wanted Frasier and How I Met Your Mother. And that's the goal for the audience. But the goal for the people making those shows is support and love and a family. And so any show that I ever create, or create again, I should say, hopefully, that is very important to me, is putting together a group of people that love each other, work hard for each other, support each other, and Bill Lawrence at Scrubs taught me that. I remember he said to me once, he goes, you can be a terrible writer. That's okay. He's like, I'm not going to fire you. I just ask that you get better. He goes, but you can't be a jerk. Right. And so, and that's kind of, I hold true to that. I try and do that in my life, and I definitely want to try and do that in my career. I'm trying to think. Oh, and at Mighty Med, the other thing I'll say is at Mighty Med, only because I know you're a fan, I'm still very close with Bradley and Jake and Paris. And, they were kids when the show was on there. I think they were about 14 or so when the show started. Now they're like 21, 22. It's very weird. I follow on Instagram and stuff, and I'm seeing it. I'm like, man, you guys are like adults now. It's weird. But the thing that was most important to me as the creator of that show, as I said before, obviously I want to put out incredible content for the audience. But it was also important to me to make sure that these kids had fun and were good kids. You know, I really, and they're incredible guys. You know, all three of them, Paris too. They are incredible people. And so that is like, I don't take a sense of pride. I'm not their parent, but I really tried to just be a friend to them. You know, as I said, we played softball. We were all on the same softball team they played. It was so fun. And we hang out once in a while. And so that is all impacted by that sense of family and friendship and love.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So have characters you've written ever been based on yourself or people in your life?
Another great question. Man, your questions are great.
Thank you.
I would say almost every character, to be honest, has at least like this much of somebody, either of me. A lot of my characters have some of me in it. Not directly, not like all my characters are, 40-year-old guys like me. But I think like some of the nuances of them, or, things I find funny, they might find funny. I think that's kind of natural. Definitely different stories. The movie I wrote was based on something that happened to my dad when I was like 1 year old. So because of his story, I basically was like, oh, that's an interesting idea for a movie, and then created a whole movie based on just this one thing that happened to my father. I wrote another pilot that's not based on TV writers, but it's a pilot about 3 generations of, a grandfather, father, and son who are all in the same business, which is like me, my dad, and my grandpa. So yeah, a lot of things, as a sports fan, sometimes I infuse that. One thing here's a little secret about me is like, I hate naming characters. Like I just find it like, I'm not good at it. Like some people are incredible. I'm okay. I just kind of find it to be like tedious. Like I just want to get over with already. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll just like look at I wrote a whole pilot where every character's name, either their first or last name was a person on the 1988 Dodgers. I just looked at the lineup of the 88 Dodgers, which is my favorite inspirational team. And I just I'll just name, look at this guy's last name is Gibson, and this person's, named Daryl, and this, whatever. I just found it easier. So, but I'd say every script has like at least a little part of me in some way.
Oh, cool. So are there any shows that you're currently binge watching?
So many. My wife and I, our normal routine every night is we put the kids to sleep around 7:30 or 8, and then spend at least 3 hours watching television, basically every night. And then if we get hooked on a show where there's a big cliffhanger, we'll go into the 4 or 5 hour mark. We are almost done with Yellowstone. Almost done there. We're watching The After Party on Apple. We just started watching Murderville on Netflix, which is really funny. We started watching Yellow Jackets on Showtime, which is dark, very dark. Let's see what else right now. I mean, so many. I have to think about what others. I can't think right now, but yes, but we are always watching a bunch of shows. We obviously just finished. There's just TV is incredible right now. You watch a lot. Like it's just incredible. Like how the streaming world, all these Netflix and Disney Plus and all these HBO Maxes, they kind of change the way you tell stories, right? There's these like arcs versus like a Frasier or How I Met Your Mother, where there's like kind of an arc, but mainly it's like each episode. Mm-hmm. And so it really like drives you through each episode. And you're just so curious, you watch like a Ted Lasso and you're just like glued. You're just like, I want to see what's next,
Yeah. Yeah. My mom and I just finished watching Murderville.
Yeah.
And we're watching The After Party now as episodes come out. And we just finished watching Love Victor on
Oh yeah.
Hulu.
How is that? Is that good?
It's so good. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so good.
I always feel guilty when someone says, "Oh, there's this great show," and I haven't seen it. But the truth is, there's just too much. You can't see everything, you know?
Yeah.
Like we just watched the first episode of Murderville last night, and people already finished. I'm like, "Oh no, I'm behind."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we're watching season 2 of the Netflix show Raising Dion.
Oh, my son just started watching season 2 yesterday. I was kind of watching it over his shoulder.
Oh, cool.
It's great.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that's what we're watching right now.
As I said, there's a lot, and and then obviously like when Disney Plus started coming out with their WandaVision was amazing, and then HBO Max comes out, and you're like, oh my God, there's some shows there. And now you got to go to Apple, and you're just like, oh my, I don't even know where to go anymore. And then network TV, Ghosts is really good.
Oh, I love that show.
Abbott Elementary is really good. I mean, there's just so much good television. It's really, it's inspiring for me as a writer. It's daunting because I want to be as good as some of these shows. It's really incredible.
Yeah. Actually, just a quick thing about Mighty Med. That is the show. I mean, I already said this, but that's like the show that got me into superheroes. And so then I became obsessed with The Flash. And so when lockdown happened, I rewatched every season of The Flash.
Yeah.
And then I watched all of Arrow. And I actually have an Arrow shirt on right now and necklace.
Cool.
So, just a little bit obsessed. But Mighty Med is really like where it started. So
good. That was the biggest honor that I could have as a writer, which is when adults watch TV. Like, I love TV. I'm a huge TV fan. Shows like Lost and Breaking Bad. I mean, these shows had a huge impact on me. I love those shows. But when a kid likes a show, that's a different kind of fandom. That is deep. Like, that is, and so it was so like heartwarming and inspiring for me to even think that people like you or, even, I mean, I don't know, you were probably not even the youngest age. You were probably on the older side of watching that show, right? Like little kids sometimes, like people come up to Randy and Jason on the street and be like, oh my God, like it's like real, it's a little more real to a kid. And so it was just wonderful to experience that, to have an impact on people. And we tried to be really funny and we tried to be cool at times, have a cool fight scene or something. But we also really tried to have like interesting stories, like Skylar Storm truly trying to regain who she is, but also understanding it's okay maybe not to have superpowers, and two boys understanding their strengths and their weaknesses while getting to work at a fun superhero hospital. So we really tried to infuse heart and just good storytelling and good characters into like what is still a funny, silly show. And I'm so glad that had an impact on you, because it definitely had an impact on us.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I just have a few more questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So what show's theme song is your all-time favorite?
Well, I have to say Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island. That's because my grandfather wrote those. But, good one. I think that this is a weird one because there's no lyrics. I think Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of quirky and it's sort of, and a little like The Office too, but Parks and Rec really sets up the tone of that show. No doubt about it. Succession. I don't know if you watch Succession.
I don't.
Okay, that's a pretty adult show. The theme song, that is like, when there's like an opening credits and then on streaming, it's like skip credits.
Yeah.
I never skip those credits. It gets you in the mood,
Yeah.
So that's always, I can tell a sign of a good show, that you like want to watch the credits, even though you've seen them 100 times before.
Yeah.
So I would say those, and then there's of course like, you know, the famous old theme songs, but I won't include those. But I would say those that's a good example for me.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Another show that I watched just a few months ago, I just finished a couple months ago, is Teen Wolf.
Oh yeah.
And I am obsessed with that show too. There are just so many shows that I love. Because most of the time, like when I don't feel good, I'm just watching shows and so shows and movies. And so the Teen Wolf theme song is one of my favorites.
Oh, good. I don't know that.
There's no words, but it's instrumental, but it's really good.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about Succession also is like that, and Parks and Rec, where it gets you in the mood for the show, right? You're like in, and you get excited for it. I always thought, when we were trying to do the Mighty Med theme song, it was tricky because initially we had kind of more of a superhero-y kind of song. And then we ended up on that, and it kind of is a lot of words really fast, but it kind of gets you in the mood for it. But as you were saying, like, you sit and when you're not feeling good and you're watching TV, there's just a lot of good to be had in TV right now. And isn't it like comfort? Like, that's how I feel about it. You know, people always ask me, they're like, oh, do you want to write movies? Kind of hinting that like TV is not as good as writing a movie. And for me, I've always wanted to be a TV writer, because that's like my happy place, is like sitting on the couch watching TV and like getting through an episode, and maybe there's a cliffhanger and you're like, oh man, I need to see what happens next. And sometimes you have to wait a week to see what happens next. And to me, that's exciting. Versus, or like a movie just ends and then that's usually it. And that's great. But for me, TV is that's always been my dream job too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to mention to add to the theme song once. For me, Mighty Med, that theme song was huge for me. So.
Yeah. I was there when they recorded that. I remember that it was exciting, to hear it and then see. That was our idea. I remember me and Jim, we wanted to do the comic book panels, like that. We thought that was a cool way to do it.
Yeah. So what advice would you give your younger self about starting out in the entertainment business?
Wow. Okay, I know exactly what it would be. It would be about friendships and people. The entertainment business, writing, anything, acting, writing, directing, it's subjective in that there's no right answer. Like you're going like, I love Teen Wolf. There could easily be somebody who goes, oh, I hate Teen Wolf. You're not right. They're not right. It's just an opinion, right? So because of that, it's different. This is what I was saying, like my other friends who are who are like lawyers or doctors, there's usually like some sort of right answer. Like if you are an accountant, you need to add the numbers right. Like you can't be like, I think it's 52. And it's like, no, like there's a number there, right? So, but in our job, there is no right answer. So I could think of a joke that I think is hilarious. Randy and Jason go, they don't like it that much, and vice versa. So because of that, because there's no right answer, when I'm creating a show and I'm trying to sell it or I'm trying to get a job, it's not so much all the time about whether that thing is good or bad. It has to do much more with the people. And the advice I would give is that, to become close with, not just as friends, because not everyone is going to be friends with everybody, but to get to know people more, go out for, coffee with people and just sort of understand who they are, get to know them, their families. And ultimately, I think that is where success in the business that's what leads to success. But I also think that that's what leads to just a nice life, right? Like, I think that in many ways, your friends, you know, that becomes your family. And, you know, our best friends, we talk to them honestly more than I talk to my own family, like my wife and I, and so I think that would probably be my advice, is to each job I take to really go out with people, get to know them, their families, and form even stronger friendships.
Oh, cool. I like that advice.
Yeah. I think it holds true for a lot of things, right? I think it holds true for any job. I think it holds true for life, you know, as you go out and, you know, even somebody who's like, you know what I like to play soccer, or I like to, you know, make pottery, anything. If you find people that kind of like to do the same things, that's where friendships form, and that's going to help you in life. Right. And you get support for both the good and the bad, you know, when things go well and things go wrong, you know, and to have people to lean on, and also people to get advice from, you know, I think that's the most important thing in life, is to surround yourself with a community of like-minded people who you respect and love and just love being around.
Yeah. So my last question for you is, who do you consider to be a real life superhero, and why?
Ooh, okay. Can I give you two?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give you the emotional answer, which is my wife. And I don't know if you ask that question to a lot of people, and they probably say their spouse sometimes, but mine, I truly believe my wife is incredible. She's the best mom and is just an amazing person, has dealt with difficulties in her own life. I told you, losing her dad, but she is just the kindest person. I don't even have to say it. All of her friends would say it. Her family would say it. She's the best. So I'll put that aside, because that's the real answer. Somebody who is more of like someone I don't know. I'm going to give you the answer of Jose Andres. Do you know who that is at all?
I feel like I've heard his name,
might.
But
So Jose Andres is a chef. I guess you'd say a celebrity chef. He's always on like Top Chef kind of things, judging, whatever. But he started this organization, and every time there's like a natural disaster or a war, or, he basically takes his organization, raises a lot of money, and goes to places like, I remember recently there was like a horrible tornado. Remember there was a big tornado, and he goes there and he feeds everybody for free. And I think it's called the World Food Organization, something like that. Don't hold me to that, but he is like a superhero. He because he literally flies in, on a plane, of course, but he flies in, sets up these mobile kitchens, and provides things for people who don't have it. And sometimes not only is food necessary in terms of like survival, you need to eat, but that sense of community. I think that's what he really preaches, which is like when people love eating together, sharing a meal. And when you're going through a difficult time, whether, it's a tornado or something, or a hurricane or earthquake, it can bring people together in that way. And so I just am always awed. He's always on CNN. I'm always like, how is he doing that? I've never met the man. I'm not part of that organization. I've donated a little bit, but I view him as the creme de la creme. I mean, he's just incredible.
Wow. Yeah. I never knew that. That's really amazing.
Yeah. Jose Andres is his name. He's amazing.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for calling in. I just want to keep talking to you. So
we can do it again. You know what? We'll do a part 2. It'll be fun. Maybe let's just say, maybe I can get a little Bradley, Stephen Perry, Jake Short action too. We can all do it.
Oh yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah,
I interviewed Jake Short like kind of when I first started out doing interviews. And so that was really cool. But I remember I was just so starstruck that I don't completely remember it.
It's so funny. Jake, when we started, was like the little guy. Like he was like the little one. He had this little high voice. Now he called me the other day and it was from a different number. And he was like, "Hey, Andy." I'm like, "What? Like, who is this?" He was like, "It's Jake." I'm like, "Oh my, I feel so old." But they're the best. Paris is the sweetest. I was literally supposed to have coffee with her, I think next week or maybe the week after. Just the best. I will say hello from you for sure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I will just say this. I can just like gush about everything about Mighty Med and everybody on it, but Paris, like she not only did Mighty Med make a big impact on me, but her show Alexa and Katie.
Yeah.
That show also was when I was just going through something really difficult and I was like just scared. That was just what I watched that show, because even before that, when it first came out, I was like, they get it. It feels like they understand.
Yeah.
Like how I feel. And so.
Yeah, that was a really special show. And Paris did great on that show too. I know a few of the writers there and they worked really hard to get it right. That was like a very difficult subject to tackle and they didn't want to just make it kind of fun. And even though it was a comedy, they really wanted to hit it the right way. And I think they did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for spending time. And we will have to do a part two.
Part two.
Yes.
I don't doubt you're going to reach out to him for part two at some point.
Let's do it. And hopefully Randy and Jason and us, we sell things and then we can talk about that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Thank you. I love it. We all need it. That's
so
great.
Good.
And thank you, by the way. Thank you guys so much. Love talking with you, Maya. I love everything you do. I watched a bunch of your interviews before this. And I just think that what you're doing is not only is it a wonderful thing for everybody at the hospital, but like you're so good at it. Like, like when people interview and you can tell they don't like, you're like, hey, they don't really care what they're interviewing about. You truly care about like interviewing and getting the answers and you're excited about the answers you're about to get. And that is the sign of a great interviewer.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Of course. But yeah, thank you guys so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome, Andy. Well, we're looking forward to part two, okay?
Let's do it. All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye, Andy.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.